So you want to 3D print some large objects, maybe some armor for cosplay, or maybe a robot like an R2D2. Well, the most ideal situation is that you can print everything in one shot. And that's awesome because then you don't have to break it down into smaller pieces and then put adhesive glue and all that together. But the issue has always been, when dealing with large format printers, is quality, speed, and reliability. Now, lately, we've seen a lot of key features that actually help make this possible, like input shaping and bed leveling, and belt tensioning and flow control and all these other cool things and all these other calibration features. Well, today we're going to take a look at the AnyCubic Kobra 3 Max that has all these features. And so now the question will be, can I print large objects with speed, quality, and reliability? Well, we're going to find out all of this right after this.
Welcome to the show that sets your mind free. Tech and gadgets, 3D surprise. Captain Creativity. Honesty, insight to regularity. With David's guiding light, invention, spark, and take their flight.
So just a reminder, proceeds of our channel go towards donations like 3D printers and other products and services for schools. We really try to aim towards donating at least 1 to 2 3D printers a month. And so we'd like to thank AnyCubic for sponsoring today's video. Now, in full disclosure, I want you to know that this Kobra 3 Max and this Ace Pro, I paid for it. I bought it during the pre-sale for $469. It was too good of a price to pass up on, and I really wanted one of these new large format printers with all those calibration features and capabilities. So today's video has not been altered or reviewed in any way by AnyCubic. This is my review of the AnyCubic Kobra 3 Max. They happen to want to sponsor one of our videos and also tell people about their new Kobra S1, which is a fantastic Core XY machine, which is now available for purchase. And so let's check it out. All right, let's get into it. So we're gonna put the Ace Pro to the side for now. All right, so we got our manual, and what's this? Okay, installation video, cool. All right, so we could scan that, and that's an easy way to follow along. Let's go ahead and remove it. So very nicely packed, and we're gonna take out the bed first. And then we're gonna take the gantry probably second, or one or the other. Let's take this out. All right, not so bad. Now let's get out those other pieces. Here's the LCD screen, spool holder, extruder. There's a bag of screws and nuts. We're gonna need that. PTFE tube, power cord. That should be it. I can see right away we have to free it here, 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 and here. So we're gonna go ahead and cut that free. Let's see, do I have a clipper? No. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead. All right. All right, so the first step is we're gonna have to unlock the frame and the base. And there's actually about 4 screws here, 4 screws here, 1 here, and 1 here. So you're gonna need an Allen key for this step, and you're gonna need the H3 and the H4. They're not labeled, but you can probably just, stick them in, and if they fit, you're good to go. So let's go ahead and remove these pieces. Okay, so now that the 2 plates are moved on the top, we're gonna remove 1 screw here and 1 screw over there. And for that, we're gonna now use the H4 Allen key. And let's go ahead and, okay. That is free. All right, so next we're gonna install the gantry, and we're gonna bring this thing up and we're gonna slide it in, and we're gonna need our H3 and H4 wrenches. We're also gonna have M5 by 25 millimeter and M5 60 millimeter screws. So very cool, they actually number their bags, and so just go to step 1 and you're gonna find the screws necessary for this next step. So technically we're in number 2, but they tell you in step number 2 to look for bag number 1. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so now it's time to remove the gantry, and we're gonna go ahead and kind of shake this out, okay? And I'm gonna just rest it here for a second, and we're gonna remove these pieces of foam. Okay. Now you'll notice that there's actually a notch here and here on this side here, and this is where that gantry is going to sit on top of. Now, one thing that I feel is a little bit different, in previous versions, they used to really have like a notch to hold this in place. This one doesn't have a notch this time around. So it is trickier to install this without a second person here to hold it. You could still do it one-handed, but you definitely need to hold on to it while you're grabbing your screws, etc. So let's go ahead and first do one side. Yeah, let's do the larger screw first. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this screw here, and I'm gonna put it right in there on the side. And now that's kind of in. I'm not gonna screw it in all the way yet because I wanna just stabilize it so I can like let go of the gantry. And I'm gonna do so on the other side as well. Okay, so once you put in those 2 big screws, you're now free to kind of, whoa! You're not free to do anything. Oh my God, okay. So, don't let go of it. Not until you put in at least 1 more of these screws. So, that was a close one. Okay, so if you go ahead and put 1 more in over here, now it's gonna really be locked in. So now we'll take the H3, load it in, and we'll start screwing that in. And then once you have at least 1 of those in, 1 and 1, now it's really not gonna go anywhere. So now it's all about kind of screwing in those 2 smaller screws, and then you'll finish up the big screw, and then we're done for this step. That's it. All right, so we're done with step number 2, which is frame installation. Now it's time for us to put in the support rods. And yeah, you better believe something this big as a bed slinger is going to need support rods. So here are 2 support rods. And there is a left and a right. So it does seem to matter which side you put it on. All right, so to identify whether it's your right or its right, basically, if it was facing this way, let's turn it this way. Okay, so if it's facing this way, okay, so if it's facing this way, where the back of the printer is now, I'm facing the back of the printer, the right side will be here and the left side will be here. All right, so let's go ahead and put this on. So we're going to need here the bag for number 2. Okay, so for the bottom part of the rod, you're going to be using the larger screws as well as the spacer here. And for the top part of the rod, you're going to use the smaller one. Okay, so for the right side, what we're going to do is we're going to take the larger screw, we're going to send it through, And we're also gonna put one of these spacers on it as well, like so. And then we're going to connect it right into this hole. Now, I'm not gonna screw it in all the way just as of yet, because I wanna show you what we're gonna do on the top part. So at the top part, you're going to take the screw and you're gonna send it right through that hole over there. So let's go ahead and just kind of line it up. If for whatever reason it doesn't reach, that's what you could adjust over here for, or to strengthen it. All right, so the right bar has been installed on the right side, and that is in this orientation. So the right bar will be here. So if you're looking at it on face on, it's going to be on this side, and the left is going to be on this side. So the longer screw is going to go down here, and then you're going to put in a spacer right over there. And then up here, you're going to see that there's a shorter screw, which is going to go in right over there. And we are going to end up using the largest wrench that we have to now screw this in. Now, time for the left rod. So same idea, we're going to take the larger screw, place it through the bottom. Then there's actually doesn't seem to be a top or bottom, but there is a left and a right. So in any case, we're just going to put that in the same way we did it on the other side. Okay, so we're now on to step number 4, where we're going to connect the Z-axis motor cable. And that is right here on the side. All right, so here's the Z-axis motor cables, and we're just going to plug that in just like that. And there are notches, so it's relatively easy to plug in. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. If I could find the cable, there it is. And we're going to do the same thing again. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it's now time to install the print head cable. And so they're telling us to actually just pull this motor here to kind of bring down. Okay, all right, there we go. We lowered the Z there, and now it's time for us to connect the print head cable. Okay, so that is this orange cable right over here. So we're gonna untangle it. All right, and now we're gonna go ahead and take our print head and insert it to the slot above the print head. All right. Do we install the print head yet? Not yet. Okay, fine. So let's take our print head right over here, okay? And we need to put that cable right in there. So what we're gonna do is take this and we're going to just pop it in. There we go. So what you'll know it's all the way in because you'll see here it's completely flush with the plastic. And at this point, there's actually 2 screws that are going to come in bag number 3, and we're going to put those in. So we are going ahead with a 1.5 wrench, and we're going to start screwing that in. All right, and so you can see now that I screwed in from bag number 3, those 2 screws, they're going to go, whoops, they're going to go there and there. Okay, so now it's time to install the print head, and you're gonna wanna do this from the back of the printer. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you that. So you're gonna take your printer and you're gonna put it just like that on here, you see? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the top screws first from bag number 4 before we go to the bottom screw. Okay, the next thing that we're going to install is the LCD screen. And one really cool thing about the LCD screen is that there's no ribbon. You could see that there's a connection right on the side, and then the LCD screen has the opposite end of that connection, and they just slide right in. So you just connect it right up, take those 2 screws and plug it, and then screw it right in, and you're good to go. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna connect the orange cable to the X-axis, and there's a clip on the outside. You can actually see that little notch right over there, and that is gonna go right over here. Okay, now once that's in, we now have both orange wires hooked up, one to the print head, one to the X-axis, and now it comes time for some cable management. So you're gonna have a piece like this, which is the cable management piece. And the way that it's going to be situated is that if you see over here, there's a place for the tube to go in there. And so that's going to be on the front part. And so you're going to slot it right into this notch right here. And there you go. Now, at that point, you have this cable over here. And you see there's more solid part over here. And then there's these notches here and here. And theoretically, you could definitely put it over there. But I actually like to put it over here unless I find any issues we're going to see in a moment, but this kind of feels better for me for it to be over there. Now, when it comes to connecting the tube, so typically if you were going to then connect the spool holder on the side, you would typically put this tube right here in the front, and then the other side would go right into the print head. But we're going to be using the Ace Pro, so we're not going to do that. Now, if you are going to install a spool holder on step 11, which will be bag 6, okay, there are going to be 2 screws and you're going to put them here and here. And it's this piece that's going to go right in there, and you can see there's a notch for this to slide onto. So you're going to place that right over there, and then you're going to put in your 2 screws into there. You would then put that like that, see, just like that. So this part is facing outwards, and you put in the spool holder like that. And then if this was over there, this would slide right on it like so. The next thing I want to check out is that the print head is not wobbling. And this is important because sometimes when you get it from the factory, you put it on, there's a little bit of wobble and it has to be tightened up. And you can do so from a screw on the back side. Now, I don't have any wiggle here. And that's what you want. You don't want any wiggle. You don't want this thing wiggling on the x-axis here. And the same thing is with the bed. So you can see here, the bed, it's nice and solid. It's not wiggling and moving around. And the same idea, if the bed was wiggling and moving around, you would want to adjust it underneath, but there is no wiggle here, so we are good to go. Okay, so now let's go ahead and unbox the Ace Pro. Beautiful. All right, so that's pretty easy. And then in here is all the good stuff. So we have our tubes, we have a little instruction guide, and in here we have electric cord, the thing for the print head, for the tubes to go in. Okay, so good, great. And then we have some cable organizers and connectors. Perfect. All right, so let's get started on putting this and connecting it with the Kobra 3 Max. So if you're connecting your Ace Pro to the Kobra 3 Max, you're gonna definitely need to do some slight modification onto the print head. So the first thing we're gonna do is remove this cover, this cosmetic cover plate. And you could just push it up with your fingernail just like that, or a flathead, and you just pull it right out, and it just comes right out. There's nothing that really kind of holds that in there. And then we stick in the filament cutter. The next step is to gonna put this right in where we took out that other part, and then that's going to snap right in. Well, it doesn't snap, it just pushes right in. And there you go. So now you have put in the filament cutter. Now we're gonna have to put in the filament hub where this piece is right now. And we're gonna do that by taking out 2 screws from the back. So let's take a look. Okay, so now we're gonna remove this print head top over here, and we're gonna replace it with the hub over here. And to do that, we're gonna remove these 2 screws. So let's go ahead and take those screws out. Okay, that's 1. All right, and that's 2. And now you can see that comes right off. So now we're gonna go ahead and put in the one that came with the Ace Pro, and we're gonna put that right in there. And now we're gonna put those 2 screws right back over here. Put that there. Put that there. And then we're gonna tighten it right back up. So now we are done. So next we're gonna install the purge wiper, and that is gonna go right over here. So it's actually got a notch there that's gonna match up to the notch here, and we're gonna put 2 screws on the side. Okay, so the next step is they recommend that we put the Ace Pro on the left side of the printer. So it's exactly where it is right here. And now we're going to connect the cable to the printer as well as some wire management. Now in positioning the printer, they also recommend that this Ace Pro should be about 10 to 15 centimeters away from the printer. So that's about this much over here. So we're going to just double check and see that it's good. And we'll move it over just a little bit more just to give it, yep, that's perfectly fine. So this is a good proximity according to their recommendations. It could go a little bit smaller, but this is what they're recommending. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna first hook up the cable on the side and, okay, so there is a cable, right? There is a connection right at the front, and the one that has 4 ports on it over here is going to go towards the front. And then the next cable is going to go on the back. They say to do it on the bottom. Okay, and that's it. So now the Ace Pro is hooked up to the machine. We're gonna put in our power here as well as over there. Okay, so let's just take out our power cables. Okay, so you're gonna need one for the Ace Pro, and we're gonna need one for the Kobra 3. Okay, the next step is to put the tubing on, and you could theoretically do it the other way around, but I'm gonna start with the print head with the hub. And so let's start from there. All right, so what we're gonna do over here is we're just gonna connect them one by one and just kind of press them down. And that's really all you gotta do. Just press them right in until they kind of lock into place. So here we're gonna go ahead and do some cable management. And so this is where we're gonna take these little clear cable management clips. I am going to just hook them in. So it just kind of makes that look nice, you see, just like that. But now another thing we're gonna do is we have to actually send them through the hub. Let's see if I could do them all at one shot. Perfect, just like that. That's exactly how you want it to work. And you need to have enough distance that this thing could come all the way down, because if it doesn't, you know, well, I don't want to push down on it, but you just want to give it enough slack. So we'll leave that now. All right, so if you take one of those plastic clips, we're gonna organize, we're gonna do a little bit more organization as it passes through. And again, same idea, you just kind of clip these guys right in like that, you see? And then it's nice and organized. You can also clip in the orange cable as well. So that will allow the orange cable and the 4 PTFE tubes to all kind of be connected together. And now we're gonna put it in the back of the Ace Pro. So before we actually connect the cables into the back here, they recommend that you take out these blue clips. And so what I'm gonna do is kind of pull it out a little bit, pull off the blue clip, and we're gonna put those back afterwards. Okay, so now that those blue clips have been moved out, we can now actually start connecting the wires. So here we have our 4 wires, and we're gonna go ahead and put in those tubes until they kind of hit the end. And again, you'll kind of feel like a little bit of a crunch when you're pushing them in, and that's how you know they're in. And what we're gonna now do is put those blue clips back on. So that's what we're gonna do right now, is just put those blue clips right back on. So you can pull them out. Don't pull too hard, but you can pull them out and then put the blue clip back on, like so. And it looks like they kind of really need to go on the side. They don't have room to go on the top. So just make sure you kind of bring it down to the side. All right, so now all the tubes are connected and we are ready to begin. All right, so let's turn everything on. I'm gonna start with the Ace Pro, and I'm gonna then go to here. Okay, so let's begin. We're going to choose our language, English, hit next. We're going to choose global, and it's going to now look for Wi-Fi. So we're going to choose a Wi-Fi network. I'm going to now enter the password. Okay, so now that the Wi-Fi is connected, we're going to now also associate it with our AnyCubic account. And so you can download the AnyCubic app from the App Store or Google Play. Inside the app, and it's now time for us to connect our machine. So we're going to initiate the pairing. We're going to click Add a Printer, and it's going to tell us which one do you want to add. So I'm going to choose the AnyCubic Kobra 3 Max, complete the assembly of the printer. We did that. Turn on the printer. Yes, we did that. Scan the QR code. Fine. So let's go ahead and scan that QR code. All right. So at this step, we're going to actually insert this USB stick, which is kind of like, it's like get started stick. And it came with the printer, and that is going to go right onto the side. And we've popped in the stick. You don't have to do anything. It now does, it automatically detected, and now it's going to start going through its self-test. So as you can see, it is lowering, it is coming down, and it's kind of doing its X, Y, and Z axis detection. The next step is it's going to go through auto leveling, and here it's going to, start measuring the different it's going to start measuring the different coordinates of the bed, and that's going to help like tune in those settings. So it's going to go through that preheating stage, then it's going to wipe the nozzle, and then it's going to do its probing. Okay, so now we're going to get to resonance compensation, otherwise known as input shaping. And basically, it's going to pick up all the different vibrations, and that will help compensate during the print. It will compensate for those vibrations when it's printing to improve the quality. So it is now going to start shaking and moving, and don't be afraid. It might sound like it's taking off, but it's not going to take off. And there we go. So this is going to take about 2 minutes. You do not want to touch anything. You don't want to be, just leave the printer alone. Don't even be near it. Go away from it. You don't want to interfere with the vibrations that it's picking up at this point. And so the best thing is just stay clear. Okay, now that that's finished, we're going to hit finish. And I think that is about it. So now I kind of like to check for firmware updates, things like that. So let's get into that. So next I went ahead and I updated the firmware, and I did so using the mobile app. After adding the printer to the app, I was able to see a link to just click update, and that was it. It did it all automatically right through the mobile app. So that was pretty good. But after this, I'm actually going to do the calibration one more time, because I tend to find that sometimes when you do a firmware update, it's really best to do those calibration settings one more time after that, just in case they get wiped out during the firmware upgrade, which does happen. Okay, so now it's time to load up a roll of filament, and we're going to use a brand new roll because I want to do a Benchy test and some other tests. And I don't want to chance my testing at all by having wet filament. So I am going to go take a brand new roll out. Cut it on an angle. That's usually the recommended. Okay. That's not so good, actually. Let's try that again. Okay, much better. All right, so now we are ready to go, and we're gonna open up the box like so. Oops, all right. And so I am gonna use, even though this is cardboard, I don't know if that's gonna pose any problem. We're gonna try it out, and I am just gonna load this in. Now, when I did my last review of the Ace Pro along with the Kobra 3, I love the fact that this was just so easy to load. So here, let's try it out again, and whoops, there we go. Oh yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Now, if I notice that there's any issues with this, one thing that you can do is download some models that actually have plastic housings that can go around it. So far, I'm not seeing any issue. I guess we're going to see when we start printing, right? I'm hoping we won't. All right, so that's loaded up. Okay, so we're now doing the Benchy test, and I actually downloaded this Benchy straight from Thingiverse. I didn't want to go ahead and use their stock Benchy because we know that's always optimized for the printer. So we wanted to see what it would be, plain vanilla Benchy from their slicing software. Now let's go ahead and see what the quality is like. All right, so let's see if we can focus that. Beautiful, perfect. All right, so that looks, it looks pretty good. Oh, the text on the bottom is very nice. I think it did a really, really good job. A little bit of stringing, but I'm not so concerned about that. I'm never concerned about stringing. I know you could just take one of those heat guns and just shoot it, but that is a really good Benchy. That is very, very impressive for such a big machine. Okay, so now it's time to put this thing to the test and make something really large. And I was thinking of actually taking one of the models of myself that I got scanned in with the Creality Otter about a year ago at the Rapid TCT show. So I'm thinking I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna scale it up to 400 millimeters. That's large enough. And we're gonna put it on with supports and see how it goes. Okay, it's done. That's pretty amazing. It looks fantastic. It looks like everything printed successfully. It took a total of 30 hours and 40 minutes. So that's about just under a day and 7 hours, which it's a long bit of time, but that is not completely out of the norm. I've seen a lot of things on Galactic Armory where you put on entire large helmets and they take about that time. Peeling it off, that came out, look at this, came off beautifully. And then the supports just, oh my God, just totally come off. Nice. That is very easy support removal. That came out great. This is pretty amazing. I am really happy with this print. I've done these things on smaller scales. This really came out really well. Yeah, that's a success on a big build. That's perfect. So when it comes to their software, AnyCubic has taken a new approach. Their new slicer called AnyCubic Slicer Next is now based on Orca Slicer as well as Bambu Studio, Orca Slicer, and Super Slicer. So you're going to be right at home here if you're familiar with these other platforms. Similar to the Bambu Studio ecosystem, they also have an online repository of 3D models, and you can select them and send them straight to the printer. When we come into the interface, it's going to be a very familiar interface. Our navigation bar has all the standards that we would expect, from auto arrange to auto orient to adding multiple plates. You're going to be able to paint on supports, color things, all those bells and whistles which you see in most slicers today. The workbench is really good because it'll allow you to manage your printers, and after logging in, it will pull from the cloud all the different profiles that you have and all the different printers that you have with AnyCubic. In there, you'll be able to manage your Ace Pro, turn on the dryer, as well as auto refill if you want to make another chamber be a backup to another chamber, and you also have the ability to turn on and off, AI detection, for failed prints, turning on and off the light, and then just moving things around and doing other basic maintenance capabilities in here. So overall, I would say this is going to come very natural to you if you've used the other slicers. And then sending things off to be printed remotely is also just as intuitive. It'll allow you to choose what printer you want, and then you have a lot of different options here to turn on or off depending on your printer's capabilities. So with that being said, when it came to the amount of time that the slicer said something will take to the amount of time that it actually took, I would say it was very, very, very close. For example, here it said it was going to take about 1 day and 5 hours, where in fact it actually took about 1 day and 6 hours and change. So it was pretty close there in estimating the times. Okay, so when it comes down to the specs and features of the Kobra 3 Max, I wanted to first go over the bed dimensions. We already discussed that those are 420 by 420 on the X and Y and 500 on the Z. When it comes to the amount of filaments that this can support, if you get 2 Ace Pros, this printer can support upwards of 8 colors. The extruder itself has a quick release nozzle capability, so you can easily go to a high flow as well as 0.6, 0.8 millimeter nozzles, and it's very quick to pop out and pop in a new one. When it comes to calibration, it has vibration compensation. They also have this auto IQ Z calibration. That works perfectly, and it basically calibrates your entire bed. So everything you would expect in a modern day 3D printer. When it comes to connectivity, there's no LAN port on here, so you will have to use either Wi-Fi or USB to connect to your device. When it comes down to the Ace Pro itself, it has a built-in dryer, which is really fantastic. There's no LCD display on it, but you can monitor it through the Workbench application, whether it's on your desktop slicer or on the AnyCubic mobile app. Additionally, it does allow for you to load up multiple of the same type of filament and then have it fail over from one roll to another roll. When it comes to speed, the acceleration is around 10,000 and the max speed is about 600 millimeters per second, but they recommend that you print somewhere around 300 millimeters per second. When it comes to price, the unit that you see here, which is the combo unit, goes for about $719. If you decide to buy this as a standalone without the Ace Pro, it will cost you about $549. So when you do buy the Ace Pro and the Kobra 3 Max, there's a savings in the combo of just over $100. So now let's talk about the pros and the cons. And I have to say, I was really, really happy with this purchase. Yes, it was an amazing deal and I couldn't pass up on it, but it actually panned out. The biggest pro of this is that it did exactly what I wanted it to do. I wanted a large format printer coupled with modern day calibration capabilities to produce large prints at very good quality. And I got very good quality, high quality in my large prints. The amount of speed that it took was basically just on par with every other modern 3D printer that I've seen today. It might be a drop below what a Core XY is, but on a bed slinger, this is exactly very close to what I've seen on many Core XY machines. Okay, so now let's move on to the cons. Well, the first one is the lack of an integrated camera, or at least a camera that comes included. I know that they sell one separately for something like $15 or less, but I feel like not to include that today in any modern 3D printer is kind of silly, especially on a large format printer where you're definitely going to want to monitor that print. Not having it there just seems like, is it really worth not including that $15 camera into the price? I know that the price point is very aggressive, and maybe that's just one thing they had to draw the line on, but at the same time, I just feel like cameras are a part of 3D printing. You should be able to monitor them, and especially if some of your AI detection of failed prints is based on that camera, it should be included in my opinion. The other con was the lack of a profile in Orca Slicer. And so while I understand that they have based their slicer off of Orca Slicer, it would have been really nice to see AnyCubic contribute back to Orca Slicer by including a profile for the Kobra 3 Max. Now, I know that some people could just take the Kobra 3 and then just modify the build size and the max dimensions, etc. But the reality is that there might actually be other settings in there that have to be adjusted, such as certain acceleration and speed settings that you can pull off with a Kobra 3, but maybe not something as large as the Kobra 3 Max. So while I could do that, and I did try to do that, I'm a little hesitant to actually deploy it on a large print because I feel like it's just a little risky. And I would have liked AnyCubic to kind of add that profile back to the community. The next con is the lack of filament capability in the AnyCubic Slicer Next. So when you load up your printer, right off the bat, you'll notice that you're limited to a very few types of AnyCubic filament. It would have been really nice to see some of the major filament manufacturers in there, like eSun, Polymaker, Sunlu, Prusa, etc. Now, I get it. You're not going to want to include your competitors in there, but there are third-party filament manufacturers that are very popular that could have probably been added in there. So who is this printer meant for? Well, essentially because of its price and features and capabilities as well as build size, I really think it could be for everyone and anyone. For $549 to get something 420 by 420 by 500 millimeters, that's actually larger than the Prusa XL, it's larger than the Bambu Lab H2D, it's larger than the K2 Plus, it's larger than most printers out there, and yet it has all these calibration capabilities plus that 300 millimeters per second recommended speed. With that all being said, it's nice to have one printer in your makerspace or in your shop that can actually handle larger prints. And so you don't have to plunker down on a multi-thousand or in excess of $1,000 machine, $549, and you can get great results at large sizes. I mean, the fact that you can get it with the bundle at $719 and also have that multicolor capability with the large prints, again, is another value add. And I could see that being a value add for schools, for businesses, for cosplayers. This is a fantastic printer to have, even if it doesn't fit in your ecosystem. So even if you have a bunch of Bambu Lab printers, having just one printer that could be your specialty printer when you gotta go a little bit larger, but this price point, it's worth a look. Anyway, at the end of the day, I love this printer and I cannot wait to use it on my future robots and props and other items that I'm going to need a larger printer for. So with that being said, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch. I hope this was informative for you. If you have any questions or concerns, please put them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Happy printing!